let's go straight into this one. Another recommendation this week, and it came around my experience with psychedelics. So before I get into that, I want you to all know I'm not a fucking drug fiend. However, it's probably best to go back and start in the beginning. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my struggles with mental health, what decisions that made me take, I guess, and then we'll get into the psychedelics. So when I was battling with my mental health, I was one of these people that the only times where I wouldn't really think about how low I felt was in the gym, which is obviously a very positive place to be. It's going to be very beneficial to not only my physical health and my mental health, but another time, and probably the only other place or time that I wasn't really thinking about how shit life was, how much I wanted to take my own life, how much I didn't want to be here, would be when I was getting out of my head. And that did look like obviously getting pissed, but then you get pissed to a point, and then that's not enough, isn't it? So you think, oh, what else is gonna be the next step that will help me really get fucked up, so I don't think about the way I feel anymore. And at that time I was hitting the bag quite in a bad way. However, thankfully I realised that that was sort of my coping mechanism, and it's hard to identify, especially in like modern day culture. Now you see people binge drinking all the time. Let's not be naive and idiots, like people are on the bags every single night out. It's crazy. Like, how, I don't know if there's been like a massive change. I remember a few years back I went to Reading Festival, and I was like surrounded, it's quite a young festival, and I was surrounded like 16-year-olds, and they was doing like Ket, and I was literally thinking, I didn't even know what drugs were until like I was in my 20s. Like, how are you there already? But I think that that's probably the way that society's changed. And yeah, so at the time when I was battling with my mental health, it was just an escape to escape. It was an escape to get out of my head and make some bad decisions. I think at the time, obviously, like anything in life, it was a short-term win, because when I was out of my head, I was happier because I wasn't thinking about all the negativity, because I was out of my head. So it's a bit like a numbing experience. That's probably the best way to put it. But then obviously after that, after you get a mad hangover or come down or whatever, it does exactly what it says on the tin, and you feel shit about yourself. So it was like short term, oh, this is helping me, but obviously long term it is more detrimental for my health. So that is where we are. We are where we are. And then psychedelics never really interested me. Never. Because I don't know why, really. I was just like, no, that's for hippies. It's not really me. Drugs ain't really my scene, to be honest. But yeah, I was just like, nah, I'm not on that. And then it was actually linked with my mental health the first time that I'd done any form of psychedelic drug. I went to Burning Man in 2017. If you haven't been to Burning Man, make sure you do go. And I knew, I've always been like this proper, like, confident person. I believe that I can do anything, but I started to get loads of doubts about myself. I started to really doubt who I was, my identity, and it was pretty scary time, to be honest, because I didn't know what was going on. But obviously this was all tied into having poor mental health. So I went to Burning Man with a few of my mates, and a few of their mates that they'd met at Burning Man previously was like, would you like to try a psychedelic drug? Acid. And I was like, absolutely not. That is not a bit of me. That's like fucked up or whatever. And they was like, but I was curious. I think I have a mentality where I'm just intrigued by a lot of things. Don't worry, I'll never do heroin because that's weird, but yeah, like I'm always intrigued like by new experiences, new places, so I said to the bloke, I was like, why would you ever do that? Like what does it do for you? And he said that it brings your subconscious forward. So whatever you think about yourself in your subconscious, it will be brought forward. So at this time, I'm having this battle internally with myself about who am I? Am I as confident as I make out? Is this all a facade? Am I just chatting shit to everyone, basically? So as soon as he said that, I was like, fuck it, let's go. And I tried it there and then. And I can't lie to you. And at Burning Man as well, I was like, you're not going to find a more perfect place to experience this. And obviously from what I'd heard about it, it opens like different synapses in your brain, so then you just become more. Anyway, had it with a bit of dinner. Then that night we was going to see Carl Cox. And with Burning Man, if you don't know what it is, it's a massive festival in America, and basically you have to cycle to everywhere. But there's like loads of different, it's not like a tent as in like you go the festival and there's tents there. It's like people will go and make a village out of like a campsite, but it's a village, and then they'll put on shows and stuff like that. Like it's absolutely mental. But obviously that means that there's lights and whatever everywhere. And as I'm cycling to Carl Cox, literally everything just started illuminating, and it felt like just joy was like radiating out of my chest. That's the only way I could put it. It was just mental. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a bit mad. When Carl Cox, that was insane. But when we was there, I didn't know this was a side effect of a psychedelic, but I know it is now because other people have experienced it to the full extent. But whilst I was there, I constantly felt like I was shitting myself, as in actually pooing. So I had to keep going to like Portaloo to check that I weren't, and then come back. It was so weird. And I know some of my mates, they've actually shat themselves on psychedelics, so that's a bit mad in itself. The trip was mental, like the colours, everything's so vibrant. And what I found really weird is like you'd go to a stage and I felt as if, like as I walked people, some people would be really hot, but some people would be really cold. So as if like the coldness was sort of telling me to stay away from that energy, but the warmness was like drawing me in. But it was mental, and obviously I don't know how long a trip is, but it's about 8 to 12 hours, I believe. So once you're in it, you're in it. And we went to another stage after that, and it was called, basically it was like imagine 2 double-decker buses like strapped together and just driving about a desert and then parking up, and then that is the stage for a DJ to start playing. And we cycled our bikes up to it where it was, and that is when I thought it was a bit weird, because as I was cycling up to that stage, everyone was, it literally looked like they was in The Walking Dead. Like everyone was like a zombie, just like 2-stepping, and I was like, oh, this is a bit fucked up. Anyway, got there, and then I was like, I'm someone who likes sleep, innit? So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just go to bed now. But obviously we parked our bikes up in the middle of the desert. Like there's absolutely no, and where we was a bit fucked up, there's no way that we could have been like, oh yeah, we're gonna park it up here, we'll go back to it. No. But then when I left the boys there, and then when I left, it was as if I had like a sixth sense. And that's what I mean, like the synapses in your brain open, because I just walked, and it could have been absolute luck, but when I got to my bike, it literally felt like a higher power was like shining a torch onto it, and that was the only thing that I could see. It was just like, oh, there's my bike, mint. Cycled back to the tent, and that is when I was like, oh, this is a bit shit now, because obviously I wasn't too long into the trip, so therefore I was still in it. So I had to just sit in this tent, tripping balls, and that was only off half a tab. So I was like, this is maybe not the best thing in the world. And then other than that, mushrooms, never tried them before. Tried them in during COVID round a mate's house. Because again, it was like, what else are we going to do? They're not too bad for you. And my first experience, it just felt like my mouth felt dusty, the walls looked dusty. I don't know if they were shit, but the experience, everyone was like, oh, they're so funny, like you laugh so much on them, they're so good, da da da. I was like, no. I just felt bun. So I was like, oh, whatever. And then I was like, I ain't doing that again. But then I went away hot air ballooning with a group of people, and we was like, sod it. Let's get some mushrooms in. And honestly, it was one of the best nights of my life. Like, it was bloody hilarious. Like, it is. I'm not advertising go and do drugs, because the last time I did mushrooms, the trip was horrendous. That was when I was in Amsterdam the other week. Obviously, when in Rome, but I obviously done too much at once, and I just wanted the floor to swallow me. But overall, like, I would say, in terms of what, like, with psychedelics, there's not really any side effects in terms of, you don't have a come down, you feel exactly the same the next day as you did before. And I think that obviously fucking mushrooms grow from the ground, innit? If you're willing to put, not saying you are, but if you're willing to put like petrol up your nose, which is found in cocaine, then why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, overall I would say it's definitely not one, psychedelics, definitely not one for fucking every weekend, but once a quarter, why not? Why not? Because I can tell you now, they don't make you, and obviously look at all the studies that are going into psychedelics now and microdosing, because it's meant to be good for you, and it can cure like depression, anxiety. Like, they're doing so much research into psychedelics at the minute to improve your mental health. So I think that shows, like, I do think psychedelics maybe get a bit of a bad rap because they're labelled as a drug, but at the end of the day, you're happy to take a Nurofen or a paracetamol, aren't you? So what's the difference? It's just a natural remedy, in my opinion. But yeah, that is a short story about my psychedelic journey. The last time was nearly enough to put me off for life, and I won't be hurrying back to do it again. But I think as well, one thing I will say is, if you are to do psychedelics, make sure that you're in a good environment with some great people, because when the environment isn't right, it can really affect you. Whereas if you're in a controlled space that you're happy with, say for example like your living room or someone else's living room or whatever, then it's more chilled, and then you'll just go with the high or the trip. Whereas when you are uncomfortable in your environment, then you can get a bit paranoid. So yeah, enjoy that, and I will catch you in the next one.